Hey Dre. I did a previous video about this young girl who was slammed by the police officer in Columbia, South Carolina at Spring Valley High School. Uh, a lot of people have commented trying to justify the actions of the cop, but when you really look at it at the end of the day, this is a young girl who was sitting, wasn't being disrespectful, wasn't cussing out the teacher. Um, and what I further found out is that she had recently lost her mother. So a lot of people have passed judgment. Now on my end, I did say because of her actions, her having her cell phone out, the teacher having to stop doing his job of teaching and disrupting the class, that takes away from the other students, and that's not fair. I'm a strong advocate for kids going to school and getting the most of their education. Anyone would tell you, my daughter, she goes to intermediate school. She's in sixth grade. They have pep rallies every Thursday. They have a football team. Now you talk about a junior high school, and they let school out a few weeks ago, which cut into my daughter's education, and I snapped the fuck out because you have a handful of students going out of town on a football trip, but the other hundreds or a couple of hundred students at the school, their education is cut short simply because of this, and I thought that was bullshit. But that's a different story. I'm not even going to jump into that. But this right here, this young lady being slammed by the cop, a lot of people were saying, well, she punched the officer. You know, they have this copy and paste shit that I've seen several times in a lot of different places. But they said, well, she punched the officer. Now, upon further review, because I didn't see a punch, but upon further review, when he grabs her, which you kind of see in the still shot, the moment that he starts to lift her and she goes backwards, you see her arm kind of fling forward. Whether it was an intentional punch or not, it doesn't even equate to what he did to her. As we're going through this, I'm going to kind of narrate because, again, what this officer did as a school resource officer was out of line. And even the National Association for School Resource Officers spoke out against what Ben Fields did. Ben Fields was fired shortly afterwards, and I don't know if that was to put out the flame, just to kind of placate those who are complaining about this, but he was in the wrong. And because the kids call him Officer Slam, that itself lets you know that this may not have been the first time that he's done this. But let's go ahead and play the video. And I'm playing in slow motion. So you see right there, that's the punch that they were talking about, the supposed punch, where it all of a sudden changed his world, knocked out a couple of teeth, or like what they said with Darren Wilson, he had a fractured orbital. Bullshit. Anyway, let's continue. Now you see right there, he's lifting her up, and I see he's got her right there. His left hand goes under her thigh, her left thigh. So you see him drop his center of gravity so that he can lift her up. You see where she's grabbing, and that was shortly afterwards, and then you see where her left leg slams into the edge of this desk. So that could have caused more bodily harm to her, but also because you have this desk, you know, it's a hard plastic. He's slamming her to the ground, and the tailbone or something hitting that could cause a lot of discomfort. But all of a sudden, because people are saying, well, she punched, quote unquote, the officer, all of a sudden she's a thug, which I'm still trying to figure that the fuck out. And I'm going to talk about that to the motherfuckers in a few moments here. But then he continues to grab her by her pant leg, and then that's where he tosses her. Now, for people who want to give this officer a pat on the back, these motherfuckers, they don't want to put themselves in a situation to think, hey, this could have been my child. Now, yes, I would talk to my child. I would kick my child's ass in the privacy of our home. However, if anyone laid a hand on my child like this, these people that are trying to give him a pat on the back, they're basically saying they would give him a handshake, which we all know is total bullshit. If you're a true parent, if you're a real parent, you're going to be very protective. If the child is in the wrong, you want to be the one to discipline the child. You can understand. I mean, I can understand a parent who says, well, my child, he's a miscreant. He's going out, he's holding people up, he's stealing money, he's beating up on the geriatrics. Whatever happens to him, happens to him. He's on his own now. But you're talking about a young girl, and as we mentioned, she just lost her mother. But she wasn't being disrespectful in the terms of talking back to the teacher. She wasn't causing a scene. And I just saw another video that happened about a month and a half ago. A white girl saying, fuck you back to the teacher, a substitute teacher. Substitute teacher put his hands on her, and all of a sudden she's talking about, you touched me. You assaulted me. Hey, that's a different story also. But this young girl who sat silently in class because she refused to leave the classroom, yeah, it's disrupting the class. But does it deserve to get slammed and thrown? And if you believe that it does, you're part of the fucking problem. So let's go ahead and continue. As we proceed with this video, the officer, he gets her down onto her belly. He gets her arms behind her. He cuffs her. Now again, a member of NASRO, it's a national association for school resource officers, said that Ben Fields was in the wrong. And of course he should have been fired, which he was. But again, people want to give him a pat on the back, and there are some students that had a 10-minute walkout. But at the end of the day, the educator said, hey, this is school. We understand that you're trying to support him, but disrupting class and disrupting your education is not the way to go about it. So go back to the classroom, get your education. I'm still trying to figure that out too. I can understand that some of the kids had some sort of affectionate attachment to him, but it doesn't change the fact that what he did to this young lady was wrong. Wrong is wrong. Refusing to move doesn't require getting slammed. She wasn't a felon. She didn't do anything to break policy. She didn't do anything to physically accost anyone else in that classroom, unless you consider her kicking the desk, and that wasn't of her own will. She was tossed and her leg hit that. She could have suffered further injury because of his actions. But for those who call her a thug simply because she was sitting quiet in a classroom, those are the same motherfuckers that forget these names: Adam Lanza, Jared Lee Loeffner, Dylan Klebold, Eric Harris, James Holmes. All white guys. All motherfuckers that have gone into a public place with guns and killed people. And they get a pass for mental instability. Not a single one was called a thug. But that's, again, the double standard for America. And this isn't calling out all white people, but there are those, typically white, and a lot of non-whites, when they see the color of the skin, they generalize as thug. And if you think I'm lying, just go back to the video with Richard Sherman during that championship game against the San Francisco 49ers when he spoke to Aaron Andrews and he had that verbal outburst. He was called all kinds of thugs, and we're talking about a guy who graduated from Stanford University with a 3.9 grade point average. Suddenly he was a thug because he's a black man with dreads. Never once had a trouble with law. Had that one questionable incident where he was going to get suspended for performance enhancing drugs, and that was overturned. But all of a sudden he's a thug. So again, to see the color of the skin and generalize like that, like they call this young woman, but all of a sudden give a pass to someone of the pastier complexion as a mental instability, Asperger's. All of a sudden they have some sort of psychosis. No one sees a double standard in that, but those are the ones that choose to allow ignorance into their life. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of break this video down because, again, her holding up the class and stopping the education process, that's not the right way to go about it. But understanding that she lost her mother, having the cell phone out in the middle of the classroom, that's not the way to go. If the teacher asked her to leave, yes, she should have left. But calling in a resource officer who should not have any part in the disciplinary process on campus. A resource officer, their primary job is to make sure that students and people visiting the campus do not enter the premises with guns or try to stab someone, shoot someone, blow up the building. They are there to intervene against those drastic actions. But trying to force someone to go to the principal office or leave the classroom, that's not what a resource officer is there for. So of course the police department and the school district should be sued for this. That's pretty much all I have to say. But anyway, if you like this video, I hope that you like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to check me out on Facebook. Peace.